would like to call to order the December 20th, 2022 meeting of the Colerain Township Zoning Commission. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And if everyone on the commission can turn on your microphones, welcome to all in attendance and those who are watching from home, to township staff, and to my fellow commissioners. Just a friendly reminder for everyone present to silence all of your devices, please. Mr. Alec, can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Bachman?
Yes.
Mr. Faring?
Here.
Mr. Gehring? Mrs. Smith?
Here.
Ms. McMullen?
Here.
For the record, Mr. Gehring is absent. I believe he said he is diagnosed with strep throat. And seated for him would be Mr. Westfall.
Here.
There we go. Thank you, sir.
Commissioners, presented before you tonight are the minutes from our June 21st, 2022 meeting. Does anyone have any comments or corrections that need to be made? Seeing none, can we have a motion, please?
I'll make a motion to adopt the minutes for.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Mr. Alec, can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Bachman?
Yes.
Mr. Faring?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Westfall?
Aye.
Ms. McMullen?
Yes.
He always gets me.
We have a second set of meeting minutes from our July 19th, 2022 meeting. And again, does anyone have any comments or needed corrections? Hearing none, do we have a motion, please?
So moved.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Mr. Alec, please.
Mr. Bachman?
Yes.
Mr. Faring?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Westfall?
Aye.
And Ms. McMullen?
Yes. Thank you, everyone. So next up is our public address. This is the time when we welcome members of the public who would like to address the Zoning Commission with items not on tonight's agenda. Is there anyone present who would like to address the commission? Seeing none, we will move forward. Tonight we have the final development plan before us. It is zoning case ZA 2022-07, Weiler Honda. Mr. Alec, does staff have a presentation?
I do. And with that, I'll begin. Located sort of in the southern and or central portion of the township, at the star there. As you recall, the case was before the commission, initially as an informal concept review, and then as a preliminary development plan in July. And just to give sort of an overview, based upon that hearing in July, it was the resolution was passed to rezone the property to PDB by the Board of Trustees. And just a little aerial view of the area, just to refamiliarize the commissioners and anyone in attendance of the area. It was a former Moose Lodge that's been demolished, and currently I believe there exists a vacant parking lot there. And just to give a property map, all the images so far have been from Cages. This is topography map, just attempting to indicate that really generally the property slopes as you move from the west to the east. I'm not sure my pointer's not working on there, but and then also you can see it's sort of that depression area to the south. That was a big topic of the hearing in July, and then also included in the minutes we approved were some photos that were submitted. A lot of discussions over flooding, some lighting issues, light shining to residents. All that was brought up in the testimonies available in the minutes from July. And just to recap, tonight before us is the final development plan. The applicants are requesting a review and approval of said final development plan. And then the version that you have on your desks The initial version that I received in our office was, I believe, November 4th. And then some comments were made, and then a final revision came out on the 14th of December, I believe. So Wednesday or Thursday of last week. And that's the version that you have on your desk. Just some very minor changes were made based on comments of the review. But I just wanted to indicate that that's the exact copy you have in front of you. That's what I'll be presenting here tonight, is the most up-to-date copy. So really not a whole lot changed. Some verbiage was added regarding the sign, which has been a point of contention up on the screen in this area here on the second page. And then also verbiage regarding the parking spaces here. And then I believe the rest of the comments were related to some indication on the lighting plans, some updates to the lighting plan, as that was brought up in the July meeting, and then also given that per the July meeting, in that PDP, all three parcels that were zoned PDB in that instance were sort of reclassed into one rezone. Sir. And that'll be a big topic of tonight's discussion and moving forward on aspects of that. And then the very last page of that is the lighting plan to indicate that there are just some sort of minor review comments just to show that no light was spilling over to adjacent properties. That was either 0.1 or 0.10 or greater. It had to be at least less than. It definitely could not be more than that per zoning resolution. And also based on the zoning resolution where all light fixtures in a planned development shall be the same type. Additionally, some shielding is indicated on that page on those two light poles on older elements that were rezoned from the 2002 case and the 2001 case in those parking lots there. Relatively overall minor changes to the FDP, nothing substantial changed for the most part from when the copy that was delivered to the commissioners to what's being presented here in staff's opinion. Staff report that was put out, just went over, pretty much tried to summarize what happened with the property thus far, and then had staff's recommendation for approval with a few conditions in there. And it's just to recap, this should have been the packet that all the commissioners received and is also posted online. So here was, just to sort of give a summary of what's happened. 2002, 2001, there were two cases in 2001, there was one case in 2002. Overall, this area being part of the target rezoning and then a few Weiler rezonings has been a very interesting topic to research and try to figure out, get all the puzzle pieces to fit as far as my role in all of this is concerned. And here's the current zoning as it exists now. And then this is just a slide basically showing that per the case in July, all three parcels are now under the case from the current case we're describing tonight. Now, here's where the fun part begins. Approximately just over 20 years ago in 2001, Target and Weiler, I believe is at the end of the year, came in and did a fairly large rezone of this whole area. This whole area being south of Compton, and then the Weiler property in the north of the Weiler property. And there's a lot of ambiguity as far as what exactly was rezoned back in that time on my end. I've spent a lot of time trying to figure out exactly what was and what was not rezoned, because what our zoning map, the Colerain Township zoning map shows, and what the plans submitted in 2001 indicate are not the same, and that's not good. Based on what I've been able to discern, this really is what the zoning map should display, and then I'll present that tonight in this presentation. And any questions about that, please let me know. In 2001, ZA 2001-08, it was the eastern portion of where the Weiler, I would call it the Weiler building, the car sales, the dealership itself is. This portion, just over an acre, that was the 2001 case. And then this is what we have on file, our department has on file as a file copy for that area, just to give an overall view of all the documents that we have. And then a particular note is our file copy being here. This is what our office has on file being submitted to our department. And I presume, I was not here, but I presume this is what was displayed to the zoning commission and the trustees at the time. And then what is recorded is this document here. And there's been substantial changes in the arrangement of the parking aisles or parking spaces, if you want to call them that. I cannot find any documentation as to how that change happened, whether it's approved or not approved, but it's just a sort of as of note for tonight's instance. And then the target rezone was case ZA 2001-09. And this is the FDP, which I'm sure is going to be brought up very shortly. The FDP is really not the ruling document for what rezones property. The PDP, the preliminary development plan, and the trustee resolution indicating whatever properties are to be included in that. That is the ruling document that says these properties have been rezoned. Usually, they reflect each other, so they should be the exact same. Our department does not have on file the exact PDP sort of laid out like this, in this sense where you have this, what I would call a very nice organized document, clearly shows all the lines. Also, right after this case was approved, so in 2002, this will come up here in just a second, Target went back and a subdivision was made in this area. So here's this is recorded. Also, pardon me, go back. This is the recorded document. This is the FDP on file with the Hamilton County Recorder's Office. Here we go, Target subdivision comes back. Again, it's showing all, areas in here indicated as being included in somehow, either in the subdivision, the final development plan. It'd be very strange to have a final development plan that is including property that was not included in the preliminary development plan, but without a good copy of the exact preliminary development plan on file. Really the only way to go back, as far as I can tell, and I'm sure I'll be correct if I'm wrong, would be to check each parcel number as existed on the tax map at that time, because parcel numbers can change over time, so it's not an exact serial number for the property. It's never a good way to go. Usually legal description is the best way to go for any property, but as far as I've had time to get to, I haven't been able to verify that. So, all I say here is the, at the very end of the staff report, where there's a proposed recommendation to do a future zone change. Really, there's two instances for that. One is, it is an absolute document nightmare as far as what property is zoned what. And then also, it's really, ideally, it's not good to have, in this case, a use where we have an accessory use, being the vehicle storage lot, tied to a separate parcel under a separate zoning district, with the primary use being the dealership, the automotive sales itself. Typically, and that onus is all on me. That should have been brought up in the hearing for the PDP and should have been discussed then. All that is to say, I messed up, dropped the ball on that. There's really no good excuse other than trying to figure out, trying to stitch together all these pieces, all these elements. I did the best I could given the time I had then, but I do apologize for that, but that part is on me. Additionally, another big aspect that has been causing a lot of extra work on both sides, both staff and for the applicants, is we are operating under a comprehensive plan, imagine Colerain, without having a zoning resolution amendment, a comprehensive zoning resolution to match that, to mirror that. So those are two factors in this whole case that have caused quite a bit of headache, and I would say hair loss, but luckily that already happened before I showed up here. So this would be basically on staff's final recommendation. It was number 7, recommendation to propose zoning amendment in the future. And really the whole idea of this, what I was intending for, although intentions are one thing, results are another, was really to bring together our comprehensive plan. Is pretty ambitious as far as it says, this whole sector should be for the automotive dealerships, sales, in a sense, a sort of west side version of King's Auto Mall, if you will, and really geared toward that. I am by no means an auto sales expert or even an amateur at all. And it was really, hopefully, the intent of all this was to bring Weiler in, bring some other dealerships in, and basically advise us what do we as a township need to do to take what the residents, the Colerain Township residents voted that they want based on the comprehensive plan, and have it match with the Colerain Township, the future zoning resolution should say, what should we, how should we be laying things out in this area? What is it that we need to do to make our area as competitive as possible for what's stated in the comprehensive plan? That was the intent of all of it. That may not be exactly what the outcome has been, but, what they say, I think about a path being laid with good intentions. But basically, all I would say, clean up this sort of smorgasbord of all these patchy zoning amendments that have happened, do it under the future zoning resolution, but then also have the applicants and then have others help Colerain Township build that zoning resolution, that specific aspect of it. So we don't, by any means, we don't want to pigeonhole or curtail their business at all. Quite the opposite. What do we need to do? What do we don't, what is it that we don't even know? Help us figure that out. That'll all be, of course, voted on by the residents, and both sides get to have their opinion, they're saying it, and then hopefully something really great comes out of that. That was the intent. Some other ones out there that'll come up tonight. Staff made a recommendation that the 16 parking spaces that either had appeared on the initial final development plan, but possibly not the revised development plan, that look, they may or may not have encroached into the proposed future cross-access easement. Made a recommendation, we're talking about 16 spaces out of, I think, like over 700 for the site total. I didn't think it was that big of a deal to say, okay, cut it down by 10, do 6 parallel. And really, the thing, this next portion of the presentation is going to show is that really the applicant's been parking there for years anyway. And I'm sort of perplexed on that aspect of it. The lighting plan, the second condition, it looks to be met by the FDP. And then really with the exception of the rezone, as far as I'm aware of at the moment, those are the only points that could have been a contention. So these are all Google Earth images from 2000 to present, and here's one from 2004. So it looks like in this image, at least, looks to be a clear delineation between the Weiler property and between the Moose Lodge property, and not really any, and it doesn't appear to be any parking or storage of vehicles for sale on the Moose Lodge property. As we go along, here you can clearly see there's a car carrier there. Some cars appear to be being stored there, or possibly some type of parking is going on there. Going through here, in this image, there's 2 car carriers on this property. This is from 2010, July 1st, 2010. This is just a zoomed in image of that, just to show, it's been going on. So, same thing here in this image. Here's one from that last image was from 2017, from October 2020. And then even as here in 2021, as the Moose Lodge is obviously been demolished, there still appears to be some type of parking going on there. These are all were presentations from the last presentation. Slides from the last presentation in July, just to show what the current parking spaces approved were. Based on my count, this is the proposed spaces for the PDP. Just some counts of parking spaces in each under each zoning classification there. And then overall total size, I think it's just over 750, 751 there. These images, that packet I handed the commissioners tonight, and then is also available for anyone who would like it as well as extra copies. This is just to show this is the application for the PDP. This is where the onus was on staff in the sense of in here, this is the applicant's application, this is the submission check sheet, and then in the application's letter, it states that, they purchased the property in 2016, and they now wish to rezone the property to enable the development of a vehicle storage lot serving the Honda dealership. Really at that point, and even further, in January of the very beginning of this year, in January, the applicants came in, did a preliminary development with us, and the topic of lot consolidations was brought up. They asked why generally zoning seems to be such an advocate of doing lot consolidations. At the time, I had some ideas, but told them I'd find some more out about it. And generally, it comes down to, site setbacks, that kind of stuff. Sort of in this case now, especially, I've learned, you have your principal use, your accessory use, and then also additionally, as a caveat to that, when the applicants were in front of the commission in 2019, Mr. Kohler had made a statement in his staff report that it was his opinion that the entire property should be rezoned. The topic of lot consolidation was not brought up, but the topic of one contiguous zoning map amendment to be once PDB was brought up. And that was sort of the driving force behind my recommendation in July to say, all right, all three of these, even at that point, I wasn't exactly sure how how the initial PDPs were done for Target and Weiler in 2001. It was sort of a compromise of, all right, look, let's at least get these three under one, which in this case, that is what happened, and that's what's going on. And then the condition of this FDP being that 1 year after the comprehensive zoning resolution amendment, mouthful, is actually approved, which is at least a year, if not more, off from today's date, at least 1 year after that date of it being approved, that the applicant come back, we waive the fee, the township would waive the fee with permission of all the hires that need to get that approval as a, hey, that was sort of the compromise. You come together, help us, tell us what we need to do to be competitive in this market, as competitive as possible, on our zoning resolution, and then we make the whole potential smorgasbord of zoning amendments, we make it right under just one prevailing zoning resolution, zoning map amendment, one PD, and a lot, at least in the future, anyone else in this position would not have some of the same challenges trying to piece everything together. So I really should have caught that in July. Here it's stated in their letter, and now it asks them to clean it up now, with the caveat of not being just today or in the next month or two, but once the resolution's done, and then even up to a year after that. Just to cover that aspect. This is just going over, this has the Board of Trustees resolution rezoning, and then the property in July, probably August, and then the zoning resolution from standards from Article 4, the approval criteria for PDPs and FDPs, and then also it kicks back to Article 1, just what the purpose is. And then also the effective final development plan on a property. And then really on the page here, it's saying that, all of it kicks back to section 9.3 for permitted uses. Really, any use that is permitted in a B district can be approved by the zoning commission. So really, it's staff's opinion. It's really not going really terribly one way or the other, whatever is decided. Just to sort of cover that base. Some more, and then also the excerpt from the comprehensive plan, Imagine Colerain. Again, this was displayed in the July meeting as well. And then approval criteria in section 9.3. Really, the purpose of a planned development district is to allow for the flexibility in zoning requirements, where the result will be a higher quality development. I believe we've already satisfied that. The conditions presented in the staff report tonight, I think, further that goal, that requirement. Also encouraging sound planning principles. And as we get to section 9.34, again, this was brought up at that last hearing, that all planned developments approved after the effective date of this resolution shall comply with the Colerain Township Comprehensive Plan and the Colerain Township Land Use Plan. Again, this is one where we have, when this specific section of the resolution was crafted, it was a different comprehensive plan in existence. It was not the Imagine Colerain plan, but still states in there it shall conform with that. And any variation from the comprehensive plan or land use plan shall require an amendment to the applicable plans through review and approval by the zoning commission trustees. And then the approval criteria as we get through for a final development plan would be that it can be found in section 4.5.3b. There are 8 such approval criteria. Would you like me to read each one, or have I beat you to death verbally?
No, I think we're good.
Okay, excellent, thank you. So based on that, staff's recommendation, it is for approval of the proposed final development plan, subject to the following conditions. The elimination of the 16 parking spaces that is proposed, and at least in the initial FDP, but as I looked at it, they did appear to encroach into the proposed easement. Discussion was had on that, but Either way, as a compromise, staff recommend including 6 parallel parking spaces. The lighting plan must indicate the maximum illumination property lines, being that the applicant has met that condition. Condition number 2. Condition number 3, that all lighting fixture systems located upon the 3 parcels included within this proposed final development plan be replaced in accordance with the lighting fixture system proposed with this final development plan within 1 year of the date of approval from the Colerain Township Zoning Commission. What that was trying to capture was that, again, the testimony in July was that gentleman had stated that I believe Mr. Russo stated his wife had lights shining in her window. It was, since all parcels are now under this PDP, and now if it's approved, this FDP, again, within 1 year from the date of approval, that those fixtures that they all be the same type in accordance with the zoning resolution. Condition 4 is that the final development plan shall comply in all other respects with regulations of the zoning resolution. Condition 5, any modification to the proposed plan as here proposed the zoning commission is necessary or required by additional agencies and or departments charged with the responsibility of plan review. So any substantial change to the plan as presented tonight would require approval from the zoning administrator. Condition number 6 is that a final copy of the final development. The big one on this was that it seems to be discrepancy between the file copies we have here for the zoning department versus the recorded copies that are in the Hamilton County Recorder's Office. And to be fair in that, anyone could take a plan down and record it. There's no, you don't have to like present ID or do any type of, so really that's just to say that, it's really just putting notice again back on us and our department, that whatever is approved, the zoning administrator shall take it down there and record it, and keep that on file, and to hopefully avoid some of the things that we've been dealing with the past few days and months here. And number 7 was staff proposed as a condition that the applicants perform a zoning map amendment to include all parcels of the Weiler Honda operation owned by the applicant upon which automotive sales are either principal or accessory uses. An application of the proposed future zoning map amendment must be properly submitted within 1 calendar year of the effective date of the comprehensive zoning resolution amendment. That's what's currently underway right now. We project to be about a year before that's done, but that could slide to the right a little bit. It could take a little bit longer than that. So it'd be whatever it is, 1 year from the date that's actually approved. And then it'd be, again, the responsibility of the Colerain Township Zoning Administrator to send a certified letter to the property owner or registered agent of the property owner, should property owners change at that time, or registered agent change within that time, within 30 days of the effective date of the comprehensive zoning resolution amendment. It's staff's suggestion that all applicable zoning fees associated with the proposed condition be waived by Colerain Township. Again, the whole intent of that was just to clean up all this, make any future presentations much more simplistic and concise. And really the big goal of all that was to start bringing in some of these key stakeholders to really to offer their expertise to our department and to the development department to guide us as far as what do we need to do to become as competitive as possible while still meeting what the Colerain Township residents say they want for their community. And with that, I'll be quiet. That concludes staff's report, and I apologize for the.
You can take a breath now.
It's been something, and I'm still even not certain which parcels are zoned what. So, there we go. Thank you.
Thank you. And I would normally ask if the applicant is present, but I know that you are here. So, with that, first on the list to speak tonight is Mr. Watson.
If I may, I'm Tim Burke. I prefer to begin this.
Sure.
I will present Mr. Watson. I believe this to be a 2506 hearing tonight, and that Mr. Watson, when he testifies, will be sworn in to speak, and I will examine him and present his testimony. First of all, thank you for hearing us again tonight. I believe that in some ways we have come a very long way. In other ways, I am more than a little concerned about
some of the conditions that are being approved at this point, which I believe are inappropriate. I think when we were here last time, and the two big conditions that were put on us was, rather than just do a final development plan for the new area that will be a PBD, you wanted a complete final development plan on both the new area and the current area that is PBD. We have done that. We've provided that to you as a part of this application. I think the other one that was a challenge was the issue of Weiler being asked to convey to the township, without charge, a property interest in the Weiler property that created the potential for a roadway easement. We've actually done that. We did it by engaging one of the best title attorneys in Cincinnati, Bob Hines, and Bob wrote an appropriate easement, which we have reviewed with township staff and with township legal counsel. Everybody says it is acceptable. It has a very strange name, and I don't know for certain whether you have it in front of you. But it is what is legally referred to as a grant of springing executory interest in a roadway easement. It conveys that interest to Colerain Township now, but the easement is not available for Colerain Township to use until and unless it completes the acquisition of other easements that allows for the connectivity between the Pool Road extension and McGill Lane. And as long as that is completed within 20 years, Colerain Township will have the ability to use this easement. And as I say, I believe legal counsel for the township has agreed that that easement is an appropriate way to address that condition. Now, one of the conditions that is being proposed for approval tonight is the elimination of 16 parking spaces that exist, that have been shown on every one of the plans that has been in front of you the last two times we were here and when we were in front of the township trustees. And the explanation for the elimination of those 16 parking spaces is that they encroach in the easement area. There are two problems with that argument. One is they do not encroach, and Mr. Watson's testimony tonight will establish that. Those parking spaces are about 25 feet away from the easement area. The second problem is that even if they did encroach on the easement, it doesn't make any difference because the township doesn't control that property, that easement area, until it issues a statement of completion that it has acquired the rest of the easements that it needs to make that connection. And when that happens, Weiler is obligated to turn that entire easement over to the township with no encroachments on it at all. And again, I believe that Township Council will confirm that what I've said about the legality of the easement and when it becomes effective is accurate. The second proposed condition, well, let me say first of all, the other conditions, the lighting conditions we believe we comply with, and Mr. Watson will testify as to how the lighting issue on the existing PBD is going to be addressed, because we took seriously the comments from staff and also the comments that were made by the neighbor when we were last here. We're going to address that issue and clean that matter up. The final condition is also a very bothersome condition, that Weiler should be obligated at some future date that none of us can predict to come back and ask for a rezoning on property that is currently zoned B2 fronting on Colerain Avenue. That's the same zoning as exists on other automobile dealerships, including the one immediately next door to us. There's no question that that property is B2. I have done a lot of zoning work in my career, an awful lot of land use work, and I've done it on all sides. I've done it for neighbors opposed to something. I've done it for developers proposing to do something, and I've done it for local governments regulating property. I have never experienced a proposal for this kind of a condition to be placed on a zoning application, especially given where we are in this process. We've been in front of you twice. We've been in front of the township trustees. The concept of rezoning this property to PVD has been approved by both bodies. The critical issue before you tonight is, does the proposed final development plan conform to what we told you we were going to do in the preliminary development plan? And it does. I don't think there's any dispute over that. But there is nothing in the zoning process, in Colerain's existing zoning resolution, and I would almost guarantee you that there will be nothing in Colerain's comprehensive amended zoning resolution that would create the possibility of requiring, as part of the approval of a final development plan on one piece of property, that at some future undetermined date, the property owner must come back in and apply for a rezoning on an existing property on which the use is perfectly legal under the existing zoning on the property. So when you consider this tonight, I strongly urge you, frankly as a matter of law, to eliminate both the condition that refers to those 16 parking spaces and this final condition that relates to the requirement to, at some future date, seek a rezoning on the existing B2 property on Colerain Avenue. I'm prepared now to present Jim Watson as a witness, but I'd also be happy to answer any questions you may have about the argument that I've just presented. And as we've determined before, I'm here as an attorney. I'm an advocate for Weiler. I am not testifying under oath because of my role as an attorney. I am presenting an argument to you. But I make that argument in absolute good faith that what I am telling you is consistent with my role as an advocate operating in a way that presents the facts as we believe them to be. And Mr. Watson, I believe, testifying under oath, will confirm that. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions?
Then I would like to call Mr. Watson as our witness.
Ms. Shield, do we need to swear in?
Yes, if you didn't already.
No, we did not.
Okay. Don't mind raising your right hand. Do you swear and affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do. Thank you, sir.
Let's share the microphone. Mr. Watson, would you please state your name and your business?
James H. Watson, McGill Smith Punchin, 3700 Park 42 Drive, Suite 190B, Cincinnati, Ohio, 45241. I'm the engineer of record for this project.
And you, in fact, were named as the applicant on this project, were you not?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
And in the role of applicant, did you oversee the preparation of the various drawings that are before the board tonight?
I did.
And are you familiar with the easement area that will be conveyed to Colerain Township once this application is approved?
Yes, sir, I am.
And did McGill Smith Punchin actually play the role of determining what the easement, the 25-foot wide easement area is, and develop what is Exhibit B to the easement that is both the legal description and the easement plat.
We did. Miguel Smith Punching did prepare those documents, and I oversaw that preparation.
And it may help if the members of the commission have a copy of that easement document. I don't know whether or not you do. I have extra copies of it if that would help.
We've got a lot, but I don't know exactly what we have.
I believe in the printed staff report, I'll double check, I believe is in there. I'll double check. You have to bring your staff report?
I have a staff report and I have the words of the easement, but then I have a legal description as Exhibit A. Exhibit B is a good description, yeah, this is what we're talking about?
That's the last page.
Yes, sir. And the Exhibit A, when you look at that, is a legal description of the entire property. Exhibit B is the legal description of the proposed easement area. And Mr. Watson, do you see the plat that's on the screen?
Yes, sir.
Can you walk over there, and I know we're gonna have this problem with the mic, but I think it's important for him to be able to point things out. Can you show where the easement area is?
This pair of dash lines defines the limit of the easement. Here is where the existing curb cut is on the Pool Road. This is a 5-foot wide easement area. See here, these are the 16 parking spaces we're talking about. The distance from this easement line to those parking spaces is approximately 24 feet. Spaces do not encroach into the easement area. The easement area is free and clear, 25-foot width, the full width of the property.
Come on back. Let me ask you about the other conditions that are proposed tonight. The second condition was the lighting on the proposed new PBD area. Can you describe how that complies with the zoning resolution, if it does?
Well, staff has advised that the maximum illumination at the property line is 0.1 foot candles. And then extending beyond the property line, it has to be less than 0.1 foot candles. So what we were able to have our lighting designer do is design a plan that met that condition. So on it wasn't on the plan that we originally submitted, but it was on the plan that I believe you have in front of you now, which would be the last page of the set, where we have indications noting that the trespass or spillage, whatever you'd like to call it, the intensity of lighting beyond our property lines is less than 0.1 foot candles, or it's 0.0 foot candles. And that condition prevails on both sides of the property, north and south side, in the R6. You can see there's an area of R6 to our south. So we're on the right-hand side of the page. In that area as well, the lighting intensity is less than 0.1 foot candles that trespasses onto the adjoining property. Keep in mind also that the measurement of the intensity does not consider things like screens, fences, vegetation, things of that character. So, and we are providing that on both sides of the property, so that will further diminish the trespass on the adjoining.
So in your opinion, do we meet the second condition
We do.
proposed in the staff report?
Absolutely.
And let's talk about the third condition, which also relates to lighting. It's already been mentioned by Mr. Allig that when we were last here, there was a concern voiced by a neighbor about lighting. What have you done about that?
On the plan that is in view there, you see a note in two long arrows extending from that note. It's pointing to two existing light poles. And what we've found was the combination of those existing lights plus the new lights that we were adding as part of the expanded lot resulted in unacceptable trespass on the lot right there adjacent to Pool Road. So in order to comply with the requirement of less than 0.1 of the property line, the 2 light poles that are indicated are identified with that note for shielding to be added.
Excuse me, can you show us where those are?
Sure. Got a pole here, got a pole here. Shielding will be added to those poles. With that added shielding, trespass onto this lot will be less than 0.1 foot candles.
Those are existing poles with existing fixtures.
That's correct.
Okay.
And the suggestion was also made in the third proposed condition that all of the existing lights on the existing PBD would have to be changed in order to conform with the proposed lighting on the new PBD. How do you respond to that?
What we're gonna do is the lighting fixtures will, I mean, they're gonna look the same. The new poles with the new lighting fixtures that will be installed are going to match the ones that are already in place.
So I'm a little confused here. Item number 3, are you agreeing with that or are you disagreeing with it? With the staff's recommendation of item number 3?
We are demonstrating, I believe, that we will bring the lighting into compliance by shielding those 2 poles. And what Mr. Watson was about to explain is the lighting fixtures will be the same on both pieces of property.
There's not a need to replace the existing lighting, is essentially what I'm
But you're only
getting
going to add
at.
2 shields.
Well, I only need 2 shields in order to
Get the
achieve
foot candles.
0.1.
Get the foot candles where you need it. 2 shields is the fix, in your opinion?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, sir.
So
So that is different than item 3 then? Your suggestion is 2 shields?
That's all that we believe we need
I
in order
understand.
to comply. And there's been no, and we've documented that with what we've put in front of you. And I understand Mr. Alleg's concern, but there's been no documentation to suggest that that won't solve the problem.
If I were to put the same lighting fixture on those 2 existing poles as are proposed in the new lot, we would exceed trespass requirements. So I don't want to do that. I want to meet trespass requirements. I can do that by placing shielding on there. And that's what that note's saying that we're going to do.
Okay. Thanks.
Mr. Watson, let me ask you about the final proposed condition, that the Weiler interests be required to submit a zone change on their B2 property fronting on Colerain Avenue at some future date, assuming a new comprehensive plan is adopted by the township trustees. Have you ever encountered in your work a condition like that before? No. And the current Weiler property that is zoned B2 fronting on Colerain Avenue, is the use on that property, the automobile dealership, consistent with the zoning on the property?
Sure, yes.
And is that also the same zoning that exists on the immediately adjacent automobile dealership?
That's correct.
I have no other questions of Mr. Watson at this point, unless you do.
Yeah, I do, if that's, Madam Chairman, if that's appropriate. So let's go back to item 1, with regard to the 16 spaces. You didn't mention it, at least I didn't hear it, but you have a very prominent note on your plan. I don't know what sheet it is. But that note talks about the direct access to these 16 parking spaces from the proposed roadway easement shall be eliminated by the mountain agency, that's you guys, Colerain LLC, upon issuance of the notice of completion by Colerain Township as detailed in the grant of springing executory interest in roadway easement. So that's the exact language that's in the
Yes,
the
sir.
document.
And let Mr. Watson explain why that got there.
Quite by accident, to be honest with you.
Okay.
When we got the original staff report, I guess I didn't, well, I'm sure that I didn't fully read it. I didn't understand that the reason to eliminate the 16 spaces was an encroachment into the easement. It didn't occur to me, and I didn't read that part. Now, I have recently had a situation where we had a project where we had right-angle parking spaces that would back in and back out onto a public roadway. And a lot of people didn't like that. And my head went immediately toward that subject. I go, oh, I see what's wrong here. They don't want traffic backing in and out into the public roadway. I get that. Makes sense to me. So I came up with that note. So I think to some extent we're doing one better than what staff's asking for. We're calling for the elimination of the 24 feet of pavement between the future public roadway and the 16 parking spaces.
And we will live with that condition.
So now let's say that again. So your testimony was before that at the parking space at the what I would call the edge of the parking space closest to the easement, there was 24 feet between that and the 25-foot easement.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
When let's go on the premise that someday that roadway gets built, what then happens to that 24 feet? That's pavement now.
Weiler's going to eliminate direct access between those 16 parking spaces and the township's easement. Now, what that means to me is we're going to remove pavement, or we're going to put in some sort of barrier. We're going to do something that's going to differentiate that space. You're not going to be able to right-angle park into those 16 spaces. That's what we have proposed in response to the comment. I think it's more than what you're asking for.
Well, I just don't know how it happens, but that's for someone else to figure out as this moves forward. As to your point, the connectivity happens to the north or the south or both. That's a detail that someone's got to figure out. I think our role tonight is just to make sure that there is enough wiggle room for those that are sitting in these seats and standing in front of us that they can figure that out.
I've got a pretty good idea on how to do it. But, yeah.
Okay, thank you. So the last issue, which I think is really you're struggling with regard to this future rezoning. So the question I have is, there were 6 different parcels that had zoning on them, and let me find that. So what I read is that there are 4 parcels that are zone B2. There are 4 parcels that are zone B2. There are 2 parcels that are zone PDB, and there's 1 parcel that's zone B2 and PDB. Do you all agree with that?
I believe so.
And is it your testimony, or is it, and I don't know that you've had a testimony to this, so that's a question now, are the uses on those 4 plus 2 is 6, on those 7 lots in compliance with zoning currently?
We believe so, and I know that Mr. Allig does not believe that the official township zoning map is accurate. But the official township zoning map is what it is. And we are in compliance with the zoning map. The B2, there's no question that the uses on the B2 are in compliance with zoning, and I've not heard any suggestion that they are not. And when you asked us to come back with a final development plan that incorporated all of the PDB property, both existing and what we are asking to be zoned that way, we've done that now. And hopefully, and not hopefully, that was in fact done to clear up some of the confusion that Mr. Allig was concerned about. We've done that with a PBD final development plan that applies to all of the property that is zoned PBD.
So the response I heard was, on the 7 properties, is your belief that they are, that the uses are in conformance with the zoning code. It is your belief, is what I believe that you said.
I believe that that is what I said. Now, the one place that I may have made a mistake is if you're including the current matter that is in front of you. Obviously,
Sure,
we're not there yet.
I understand that.
But we believe that if the final development plan that is in front of you tonight is approved, we will be.
Well, I guess here's where I'm going. I've listened to your discussion, the staff's discussions. I mean, it sounds like this has been a mess for 22 years, since 2000.
And that
And I don't know how that's occurred. I mean, I don't know the history. I don't know that anyone knows the history.
and none of us were there at the time that that happened. I would only suggest to you again that we have come a long way with trying to create a final development plan that deals with all of the PBD property, so that any questions about that property is eliminated when that final development plan is approved. Then the only other issue is the use of the B2 property as depicted on your zoning map consistent with the zoning code, and we believe that there is no question that it is.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. McNair, did you wish to speak? Okay, so we had Mr. Watson and Mr. Burke. Was there anyone else who didn't sign in tonight that wishes to speak? Okay. Seeing none. Does anyone have any additional questions for staff or for the applicant?
May I add a few points of clarity if no one has
Just
questions?
one other thing that came up in the July meeting that I should have asked, and it just came to my mind. And it was the issue of drainage. It was the issue of existing pipes on your facility that might have blockage, or there was testimony and in storms they were backing up. This is not the off-site detention, the on-site detention, off-site creek issue. I understand that issue. But these were some of the existing catch basins, pipes that you had on the property. Was analysis done? Did you do any drainage homework on that?
Well, we're there at present. We've got some drainage that, some pipes that leave our site to basically the Moose Lodge parking lot, and then go on to an adjoining.
To do what again? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
The old Moose Lodge parking
Old
lot.
Moose Lodge.
Okay.
Yeah.
There are some drainage structures on that drain directly onto adjoining property. We're taking those out. We're eliminating that connection and that drainage onto the adjoining property. We're routing it. We're diverting it to the detention basin. So we've eliminated that source of runoff onto the adjoining property to the north.
Yeah, and I didn't look at the minutes close enough. I thought it was actually a manhole
Well,
that it was coming out of.
my memory of the thing was that there was potentially some impediment downstream on the target property.
Could be.
That was the theory that individual had proposed. That's my memory of what I thought I heard.
I think it was the neighbor directly across the street that also had the issue with the lighting. And it was a catch basin right at the mouth of your entrance into your parking lot, is what he was saying, was overflowing and flowing across the street and through his front yard. So I think that's what you're.
Yeah, and what we've got going on here, I
Right where
believe
Pool
will
Road would
correct
flow
that.
into your place there.
Okay.
Mr. Alec.
Couple points regarding the parking. As I mentioned in the presentation, the applicant's been parking there really, without permission for years. I mean, there's no big side on that. And then if I could here, if I can figure this out, if I could direct the commissioner's attention to the last page of the FDP that's on your desk, the lighting plan there. Let me see what I have to do to get this to pull up. I'm gonna lose everything, but. On the screen is out of our zoning resolution, section 12.9.4, table 1211. This table is describing illumination levels across property. PDBs are mentioned in this table, an average of 2 over the parking lots. If you look at these numbers, some of these are 18, 22. There's a statistics table in the middle right of the FDP page, the last page there, showing the averages are way over anything approved. So that one should be pretty shut and dry on that one. And also H, that's where that condition came from. Uniform lighting shall be provided to prevent various intensities of lighting throughout the parking area. Such uniform lighting shall be illustrated in the required lighting plan. So while, you can't have sort of, light proliferation or waste or whatever the term is on any adjacent properties, also, the maximum illumination across the property is an average of 2. They're well over that, especially on the existing. And that's what that condition was for, was, okay, it's here now. It was been addressed by the citizen in the last meeting. That was an issue. It's displayed on this proposal here. The average being 2.2 for the calculated zone number 1, 14.1 for existing GE. Maybe Mr. Watts can describe exactly what that is. But really it'd be to where that lighting plan would have to be in compliance with that. It's not in compliance with the zoning resolution as presented to the commissioners at this moment. And then the last part, I will submit to you, Ms. McMullen, or to the whole zoning commission. I only have one copy at the moment. This is a staff report from Mr. Kohler from 2019. I've circled on here, but can provide and will provide other copies in the minutes stuff. I'll read it verbatim here. Staff review comments. If the current request is approved, the auto sales facility, in 2019, this case was for the same portion, and correct me if I'm wrong, of the property we're talking about tonight. If the current request is approved, the auto sales facility would be about 8.5 acres in size. The original sales facility prior to 2001 was only about 2.13 acres and is Zone B2. This B2 portion of the site is the most visible to the public since it is the Colerain Avenue frontage of the property. The B2 portion of the property is also non-conforming to the Colerain zoning resolution in significant ways, including impervious surface ratio, billboard sign, and street landscaping. In order to maintain the purpose of planned districts in section 9.3.1, it would be preferable to zone the entire auto sales facility as a uniform planned district in order to correct some of the significant nonconformities on the B2 portion of the property. Part of current staff's recommendation of this supposedly unheard of condition it was staff's intent to provide a grace period. Go forward with the plan as proposed for the most part, with the exceptions that have to be made. But in the future, come back to me, what has already been, to show that in 2019, this was staff's recommendation, and really the difference now being the time allotted would be the only difference. I'll provide this to you, Ms. McMullen.
In light of this new argument by staff, I would like to call Mr. McNair, the general counsel for Weiler, and give him the opportunity to respond to that. I would also point out that saying in that staff report that something doesn't comply with current township zoning resolution doesn't mean that the use is not perfectly legal as an existing non-conforming use at the time a zoning resolution changes. But having said that, let me call on Mr. McNair.
If I could finish real quick, Mr. Burke. Additionally,
Had finished, I'm sorry.
I had not finished, I just provided that piece of evidence, I apologize. May I finish on this one aspect? I will take him seating the microphone as a yes. What, part of that, to provide that staff report, the part was, while the use is an approved use in B2, there were other elements of that property that are not in conformance with the zoning resolution. And then also additionally, with this proposed FTP, there are elements that are not in conformance with the proposed zoning resolution. I understand the commissioners just got this copy that we're actually discussing right now was provided to staff on the 14th. And here we are on the 20th of the hearing. I just want to make that point. Thank you, sir. Thank you, commissioners.
And with that, may I present Mr. McNair?
Yes.
Good evening. My name is Brian McNair. I'm General Counsel with the Weiler Group, 401 Milford Parkway, Suite A, Milford, Ohio, 45150. Just from a historical perspective, Weiler, with this issue with regard to parking vehicles, just so that, again, historically, so it's understood, Weiler began leasing property from the Moose Lodge in October of 2001. So we're talking 21 years, going on 22 years, that there's been a relationship with Weiler parking vehicles on this property. It was part of a lease agreement with the Moose Lodge, again, dating from October of 2001. So yes, there are pictures there showing vehicles on that property pursuant to a lease agreement with the Moose Lodge. Backwards, again, 2001, 2002 is when the preliminary development plan was decided upon. When we came before this commission in 2019, actually, it was September 10th of 2019. Weiler had purchased the property on August 31 of 2016. At that point, because of we then leased the property back to the Moose. And again, historically, the interesting thing about Moose is Moose Lodge number 2. That's how far that entity goes back. So again, there was a relationship going back to 2001 between Moose and Weiler. Moose continued to lease the property after Weiler purchased it. It was leased back, as I said, pursuant to agreement, and that went through 2017. Then Moose basically moved their lodge. We came before you on September 10th of 2019, and it was at that time where I had personally been working with, along with Mr. Reaney, who is here, and Mr. Watson, and we had actually met with Marty Kohler and also with, who was a senior planner at the time, and I can't remember the other gentleman's name. Jesse Urbancic, excuse me. So I had met with them at least probably 5 or 6 times, along with either by myself or in conjunction with Mr. Reaney and Mr. Watson, probably literally another dozen phone conversations. At no time, and also just so it's understood, from 2001 up until that night when we came here in 2019, Weiler had never received a citation, had never received a notice, had never received a fine, had never had anyone contact the company and say, you're in violation of the preliminary development plan going back to 2001, 2002. That night, for the first time, Mr. Kohler told us that we were in violation of 3 items. We were in violation of unloading vehicles on Pool Road. That ceased immediately, and that has not happened again. The second involved the sign. There is a billboard sign that's owned by Lamar. What we had been doing is leased 1/2 of that sign from Lamar. It took us then working with Lamar because they had lease commitments to other companies, including M&M Mars, for the other side of the sign. The requirement was that we had to lease, Weiler had to lease both sides of the Lamar sign. And we have done that. We were able to wait out the existing agreements that Lamar had with other companies. And then we have now, as I believe it was November, I can't find my date right here, I apologize, I had to pull out an old note. But I believe that it was in November of 2020 that we have had both sides of that sign. So the first issue was the unloading of vehicles. Stopped immediately as of September 20th of 2009, excuse me, September 11th of 2019. The sign issue, unfortunately, because of commitments Lamar had, it took us until November of 2020. That was rectified at that point. The third issue did involve landscaping, and that actually we were supposed to put trees, ash trees, as it turned out, which is, I find kind of comical, quite frankly. And I guess good thing maybe that we didn't. But we were supposed to put ash trees on the property. We have since hired BZAC Landscaping, and they have actually done a beautification program. And we now have more vegetation in the forms of trees, grass, shrubs than actually was required from the original plan in 2001, 2002. So of the 3 violations that we were asked to rectify, we rectified. Those have been completed, and completed for over several years now. So I did want to just bring that up and point that out. Are there any questions with regard to that? But those were the issues that were brought up. Those were the violations then, and it was only those 3. There was never a mention by Mr. Kohler with regard to certainly that night or with regard to any other meetings that we had as far as anything else other than those 3 items.
There
Or
was
then
also,
subsequently, truthfully, I actually then met with Mike Iona, who came after Mr. Kohler. Mr. Iona was more than, again, have you fixed those 3 things? That's all I need to know. And then since then, we've had some good meetings with Jared. I personally have met with him along with, again, these gentlemen, and I know that Mr. Burke and Mr. Watson have also had some good meetings with him also. But I think we're moving forward, and I think the issue here is just that our final development plan is in compliance with all that's been requested. Thank you.
Mr. Faring, I believe that
yeah,
you-
there was another issue too with parking cars out front on the grass in between the lot and the sidewalk, and
That was
There
not
were-
mentioned in the 2019 by Mr. Kohler.
it wa-
but
it was
that
mentioned here at the meeting, because I was here for that meeting.
Okay.
And there were other issues, and I think the intent of the sign was is just trying to get rid of some of the hideous billboards on Colerain Avenue.
And we worked with Lamar on, and that's a Lamar issue that I know Lamar is, in my understanding, based on Lamar's representations. I actually spoke with the president of Lamar, who's based in Louisiana, about this very issue. And they're working with Beachmont Avenue, and they're working, they told me anyway, that they were working with you all on the signage that they have on Colerain. I can't speak to whether they have or not. But as far as any issues with regard to vehicles, that, again, that's been addressed too. So everything that we were asked to do back in September 2019 has been addressed. We have met. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Alec, can you please show us condition number 3 again? So with this condition, as you were pointing out on the table, all lighting must be updated. And what the applicant is stating is they believe that they can meet, oh no, I think I'm confusing number 2 and number 3. So number 2, they're saying for the foot candles that they can accomplish that by doing the 2 screenings on those. And then number 3, the staff is requesting all lighting fixtures within all of the PDBs need to be updated.
To comply with the zoning resolution, that is correct. And that was, that reference to the last page, which again, you know, I know the commissioners are seeing for, you know, really for the most part for the first time tonight, but on that very last page under statistics, the average, as it's stated in section 12.9.4, table 1211, the illumination levels, across the whole property for a PDB, the average should be 2.
And just to be clear for me, at the preliminary development plan,
If it helps,
that,
Wiley will concede and comply with condition number 3.
okay, I do have one question first, though.
As you were saying, yes?
Was that condition, and I failed to go back and look at the preliminary development plan, but was number 3 a condition on the preliminary? Okay,
First time we saw that was last week.
okay.
Per the preliminary development plan, when all 3 parcels that were PDB at that time were rezoned to be under one consistent PDB that would comply with the zoning resolution, that is where this condition grew out of. And then this is, on the 14th was the first time staff was provided with this last sheet indicating the lighting levels in the adjacent PDB areas, if that clarifies that aspect.
That does. So then the current sticking point, since we appreciate your comment, so the current sticking point is the 16 parking spots. And that's number 1, correct?
Yes, but I don't think that is a sticking point, as legal staff here has shown to me. Based on what my interpretation of the final development plan indicated, I'll go to that sheet if that would help. It appears that the parking spaces, they will not encroach, and I was wrong on that. So if you can see, I think it goes, so this strip right here, and Mr. Miller, if you would just note that this happens, just let it be reflected in the minutes and in the record that the projector just resets and wait. But anyway, so getting back to the plan, we won't let that stop the show. If you go to the 3rd page of the FDP, I believe it is, the dashed lines are indicating where the cross-access easement is. To be honest, I just misinterpreted it. I thought it was that the dashed line on the right and the solid line on the left. And I guess that's not what that solid line on the left is indicating.
So number 1.
So number 1 could
Does
just be
not apply.
strict, yep.
Okay. Which, Mr. Burke, is consistent with your argument,
Testimony.
your testimony, sorry.
I'm fine with that easement. I mean, it's gonna be hashed out in the next 20 years, if ever. I'd be surprised in my life if I ever see it happen. Will you park cars on it? Sure. I can pretty well guarantee you're gonna park cars on it until that happens. The lighting, though, we did not have this lighting plan previous to this, so.
Far as
And
staff
that's
is
one of the things that we asked for
Yep.
at the last time you guys were in here, was a lighting plan on that. And looking at this, this probably won't meet our average. I haven't run the numbers through that, so I don't know what they do with that to make it work, but there are some hot spots in it, that's for sure.
Yeah, on the lighting plan, there's this little statistics portion right here. And the lighting plan's the very last page of the FDP, right here. Every average is over what's permitted now, so just, but again, this is, we didn't even have this to the 14th. It's one of those things where, you know, we're really kind of, all this, the intent, and again, as I said, was we are looking at an FDP, a PDP and an FDP approved after the approval of a comprehensive plan, but prior to the zoning resolution catching up to that plan. And the whole intent was to give some kind of ebb and flow between, we realize it's not really ideal to say to anyone, hey, in the future, come back and apply for rezoning that does meet the zoning resolution, nor is it ideal to be approving FDP, again, with incongruent plans. One be the comprehensive plan, one be the zoning resolution plan. But that's just a matter of fact of where we are, and it was really staff's intent to bring the applicants into the process of how do we shape our future zoning resolution to really, if we, accommodate what dealers need to be as successful as possible in Colerain Township, while at the same time, making sure we don't impose any unnecessary hardship on any of the residents. That was the whole intent of it, hoping that we'd see, some kind of working agreement. We go back through, all kinds of things could be, sniped or nitpicked. We have on file, violations that exist in 2007 and 2018 that were sent to the property. We have, pictures, aerial pictures showing parking's on there. It's like, that's really not ideally the intent. The intent is this is a step forward for both the applicant and the township. And then an additional step would be bring the whole property under a PD, as really it should be. If you have a primary use, being auto sales, an accessory use, being the storage of that material or those items, that really should be under one consistent, in this case, zoning resolution, but one zoning district, in this case, a PDB, ideally. And as I said, it should have been brought up at the PD, the hearing for the PDP. It was brought up previously in 2019, and it really is just trying to clean up this just massive mess of zoning issues that exist with the two developments that went on in 2001. If I can get the projector to come back on.
So, Mr. Burke, I do have a question for you. For number 9, which if passed would become number 8, so it is the future date of rezoning request, is the sticking point for you just not wanting to rezone the entire property, or is the sticking point just the arbitrary date? There's not a known date in the future.
There are multiple sticking points. I suggest to you, first of all, given where we are in this process, when this comes back to you to determine whether or not the final development plan is consistent and compliant, it is. This suggestion was something, again, that we saw for the first time last week. It's inappropriate at this stage in the process. We have a perfectly legal zoning existing on the Colerain frontage of the property. One of the things that is being asked is that we give up that perfectly legal zoning and go to a PD, which, as we are seeing tonight, creates all kinds of discretionary arguments that we'd rather not get back into. And I don't think it's appropriate to create a requirement that says we have to come back having no idea what the comprehensive amended zoning resolution is going to provide, and ask for a new zoning under that. When, if there is a new zoning resolution, we continue to exist with all of the rights that exist in the current B2, even if the zoning were changed on the property by the township. And you always have the right to change the zoning on the property. But we would have the right to continue to exist with our current uses that were legal today as legal non-conforming uses of the property. And that's something we don't want to give up.
Thank you. So, Commissioners, do we have any additional questions for either staff or for the applicant?
Just some help for me. I have a sheet in front of me that has 7 staff recommendations. Are there 9? You said 9.
Did I say 9? I apologize. I thought I
Okay.
correct.
Okay.
Yes, you are correct.
Well, it seems that number 7 is a tough one. I mean, I think I understand what we're trying to do. I think, and that is cleaning up sins of the past from 20 years, and trying to catch up, trying to understand, trying to keep the process of this rezoning occurring while a comprehensive plan modification is occurring. Is that true? I mean, is that kind of, if I boil it down to a few paragraphs?
Much better, much more concise, yes.
And trying to I like what you were saying about that the township remain competitive in the car market as that's changing. And I guess where I'm at is, I think I understand Mr. Burke's comments of boy, I sure as heck don't want to get rid of zoning that I have legal conforming uses, or maybe even non-conforming uses, but are still legal. And you don't want to get rid of that, and I understand that. On the other hand, I also understand the township wants to be a good political party, if you will, and be positive for the car market and as it's changing. But I just don't know that a modification of the rezoning is the answer, or a future rezoning is the answer. I think having discussions about what works, having discussions about advertising or joint advertising, whatever that case is, wherever the market's at, is maybe the more appropriate way to go. And I sense that there is absolute frustration about this 20 years of amendments that aren't clear, or that you have a file copy of one, and when you go to the auditor, it's different. The recorder's office, at the recorder's office. I understand his frustrations, but I don't think that I can approve this with item number 7. That's just where I'm at. Everything else I agree with in terms of the modifications that have been made today. And the 16 parking spaces is not an issue, and the applicant agreeing with the lighting and so forth. That's where I'm at.
Thank you. Mr. Ferry, Mr. Westphal, Mrs. Smith? No? Okay, so then at this time, is there anyone who would like to entertain a motion?
I will make a motion. Approval of final development plan. Final development plan. I'll make a motion for approval of final development plan ZA 2022-07 for the Weiler Honda, and with the following staff recommendations as part of that motion. And that is item number in our packets 2, which deals with the lighting plan, illumination at the property lines at 0.10 foot candles. Item number 3 in our packets, that all lighting fixtures, systems located on 3 parcels included within this proposed final development plan be replaced in accordance with the lighting fixtures as stated in the comments here. 4, that the final development plan shall comply with all specs and regulations of any resolution. 5, any modification of the proposed plan as here proposed the zoning commission as necessary or required additional agencies. Number 6, the final copy of the final development plan is approved by the Colerain Township Zoning Commission, including all conditions, go to the recorder's office by the Colerain Township Zoning Administrator. And that's why we'll end my staff comments as part of my recommendation for approval.
So the motion on the floor before us is an approval of final development plan ZA 2022-7 with the elimination of number 1 and number 7. Commissioners, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Mr. Allard?
Mr. Bachman,
Yes.
Mr. Ferry,
Yes.
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Westphal,
Yes.
and Ms. McMullen.
Yes. The motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen.
Moving on
Yes, please.
with the approval of the 2023 zoning commissioner meeting calendar. I'm not sure if everyone had a chance to review that, see that we didn't miss any dates, or I didn't schedule any meetings on a day or too close to holiday when it shouldn't be. Anyone have any objections or see anything?
Nope, I reviewed it and I thought it looked great.
Excellent, excellent.
Anyone else have any Feedback on the calendar?
That's fine.
Do we need a motion to accept, or?
I don't think you really do. I think it's in your bylaws that you can just approve it, but if you want to, you're welcome to. And I have one.
I'll make that motion.
Oh,
Yes, please.
what a gentleman.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay.
Colleen will probably second it.
Is that?
Colleen will probably second it.
I will.
Oh, look at that. You guys did each other so well.
Oh, now they're showing off.
I know.
All right, we have a motion and a second.
Mr. Bachman?
Yes.
Mr. Farren?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Westfall?
Aye.
Ms. McMullen?
Yes. All right, Mr. Allig, we have a sad update, if you would like to proceed.
Second one this year. I must not be doing something right. I apologize. Mr. Farring indicated a little earlier in the year that he desired, he would not be seeking reappointment. He'd end his term at the end of this year. He emailed his copy of the resignation to us, and through all that, through some absolute, it's been a chaotic couple weeks. We did all the interviews, and then leading to the next item, if that's okay. By the absence that was created by Mr. Farring, we interviewed all the applicants. All those get turned over to the administrator, well, to directors, and then the administrator, and then the Board of Trustees voted new members. So we definitely appreciate your service, and you've been a great addition.
Thank you.
We're gonna miss you.
You're welcome. Enjoyed being here, working with you guys. It's, you always learn till the day you die, and I learned.
A lot of learning in this area.
Been good. No, I've had a good time.
Thank you, Mr. Farring.
Thanks for doing it.
Yes. And we wish you continued success for your future, and your knowledge has definitely benefited our community, so thank you for that.
Been here my whole life, so I've seen a lot of change.
Yep. All right. So we are at number 10, announcements, and you have a code enforcement progress update.
When I first started here, many, many moons ago, just over a year ago, someone on this commission, I won't say who, I believe that I can't remember verbatim how it went, but the general, I think the question was asked, my feelings or my opinion about code enforcement, and just sort of new to the area and to the role here, from where I was, I thought it was actually pretty good. I really liked how the code enforcement was as a separate branch from zoning under the police department. I thought that was a great way to go. And this year we've been through unbelievable meetings and hearings. And Sarah's, I'm surprised she heard I don't have that same hairstyle. But basically, a few months ago, there's a decision, we were given direction from the now Township Administrator, I think he was then Township Administrator very shortly interim, that to come up with new SOPs to handle code enforcement. And one of the things that we have started doing in order to sort of help relieve our law director is just doing a general citation through the ORC for the initial code enforcement violation. So if they violate something in the zoning resolution or anywhere else in what's it, Chapter 5, Article 5 of the ORC, deal with townships. So a lot of like property, parking, trash, just a citation initially, so a criminal citation, which we're really hoping will speed up the process and solidify the process for when we do, if the problem doesn't get rectified, and then we do engage the law director, they'd be at the point where we already have the criminal conviction down, being a higher burden of proof for that conviction, beyond a reasonable doubt. Then we get to a civil case where our law director would get involved as we're writing some new resolution was passed, I believe in October, became effective in November, where everything's a civil citation as well, or in addition to, I believe is really going to start, help us cut our teeth to be even more effective. So I still stand by my original statement that it's good here. I've seen worse, I can say that, and I believe we've gotten better. So I know it's been a long year, I'll say that. But anyway, I just hope that the committee, we spend all day or all of our meetings in the zoning resolution. You like to see that has some kind of teeth out there, and we've given it some, and then even more. And I believe in the next year, you will find, and maybe even sooner than that, even more teeth behind it as we start to get into some other stuff. There's a lot other there. Like in our zoning resolution, it describes an infraction being a minor misdemeanor, but based on everything we've seen in the ORC, it doesn't have to be that. With the fine being up to $500, that could be a third-degree misdemeanor, based on the ORC on their schedule. So anyway, more to come. Been a long year. More to come. Stay tuned.
Yeah, that's good.
Anyway, and then we do have a meeting scheduled for January 17th, 2022.
Oh, you're jumping ahead. I do
sorry.
have an announcement as well, and your description of the code enforcement is actually a great precursor to us congratulating you on becoming the employee of the quarter.
Oh, wow.
So congratulations, and you've earned it, so thank you. So now you can continue.
Okay. Well, I appreciate it. I guess I like working. I like this stuff. So anyway, thank you. And thank you for letting me serve you guys here. And I hope I've done a good job this year and get even better next year. We're learning. Just learning. And there's a lot of, I say it a lot. It's trying to put 10 pounds in a 5-pound sack. And there's some other Army statements, but I'll leave those out. But anyway, I apologize for jumping ahead. But the next meeting is scheduled for January 17th, 2022. So I guess Merry Christmas, everyone. Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, anything I left out, and Happy New Year. Happy New Year. That will be an amendment. That applicant was here. Definitely an applicant who was here for the full concept review for the car wash. They're planning on submitting, they have submitted for January. And then the applicant who was supposed to be hearing tonight requested to withdraw their application for tonight's meeting, but may come back in January. So we definitely have one, may have two. Who knows what may happen between now and then. It's always an adventure.
Just a note for the calendar, I will not be in attendance for that meeting, so I will be out
Thank you for letting
of the
us-
country.
And then, if I may say, this will be the last thing, I'll be quiet, I'm sorry to everyone here. The last hearing, there was a question about whether a vote needs to be held for the board, and Mr. Grody, who also resigned this year, one of his gifts, among other just institutional knowledge to me, was a copy of Robert's Rules of Order. As I said I would, I'd look in. If, I believe it's my interpretation based on the Robert's Rules of Order, if the chair says, seeing that there is no further business, they can adjourn the meeting based on, so you were correct. I was wrong. I've had to say that a lot, but I am learning, so.
Ended the year on a good note.
Hey, there you go, there you go.
I'll have to let my daughter know I was
Please
right
do.
one time this
Please,
year.
wow, hey, and it's on record. So, there we go. Thank you so much for your patience. I am learning and just trying to make sure we do everything as best as we can with I's dotted and T's crossed. Sometimes my I's go crossed in the meantime. Thank you.
Yep, we appreciate you. So number 12, commissioners, staff, applicants, Ms. Shield, everyone, thanks for being here tonight. And on behalf of the Colerain Township Zoning Commission, we want to wish everyone a very merry holiday season and a healthy and happy new year. All in favor of adjournment, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.